Hey, what's up, guys? My name's Nedum Onuoha, defender for RSL in the MLS. Make sure to head over to Juan Rodas's YouTube page, where you can find our interview and a whole lot more.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Juan. Today we have defender Nedum Onuoha from Ras Salek. Nedum, how are you?
Yeah, I'm very good, man. How are you?
I'm doing good, thank you. And obviously, I want to thank you for taking your time out of your day doing this for my YouTube channel. So thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem at all, man. No problem at all.
Perfect. So obviously, you were born in Guadi, Nigeria. If you could talk to us about, your upbringing in England.
So I was in Nigeria until I was 5. Went over to England in 1991. I was raised there with at the time, my two sisters. We're basically a Nigerian family within England. The culture and stuff in England, it was happening, but we weren't really a part of that. We were our own, our own household. It was different. It wasn't one that was filled with money. We were going from council house to council house and stuff like this. We were struggling, but this is life. This is how it is, and thankfully we're in a position now which is a lot better. But in England it was good. I was raised in Manchester, the place where City Stadium is now.
Yeah.
And I joined. Do you want to talk about like soccer now, or just talk about my life? What would you like to hear?
Both.
So I didn't start playing soccer in a team until I was 8 years old, and then I was recruited for the academy at Man.City when I was 10.
Wow.
So basically, from 10 to 25, that was my club. I was at the old state. I used to ball boy at the old stadium when they were in the third division, stuff like this. So yeah. I've seen the other side of Man.City, which a lot of people don't know about.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was. They were good times, man. I enjoyed my time there in Manchester. That's basically where I call home, and to be able to play for the team which I supported was incredible.
Yeah, of course. And then obviously, when you moved to England at such a young age, did you still remember some parts of Nigeria?
Yeah, for sure. I think as times passed, like one thing that's happened is I've not really been able to go back home because from when we were younger, it was always very expensive to do so, and having it ended up being a family of 6.
Yeah.
And we couldn't really afford to all do it together. So every time we'd go back, it'd be in small groups and it'd be for weddings and stuff like this, which also happened to be in the summer. And as far as summer went, as soon as you get to, I think it's maybe 14, 15 years of age, July is when you're playing soccer.
Wow.
So I couldn't go back because I was doing stuff for the academy and so on. Yeah. So yeah, I've not managed to go back for a while, but there's lots of good memories in the back of my mind, and I want to see it again, live it again, and I think I'll probably do so in the coming years.
Of course. Does your name have a meaning?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it means God guides me.
Wow.
God guides me. Yeah.
Wow.
So they said that. I think I've done pretty well so far. And So everything's good.
Of course. And then obviously, having Nigerian parents. If you could talk to us, about how strict they probably were.
Well, for me, so I did well in school. And one of the reasons I did well in school is because I wasn't allowed to not do well in school.
Wow.
Like we were, myself and my sisters, we were always pushed. Like they tried to get us into the best schools possible, even though they couldn't really afford it. So we always had to invest time. And my career is one which is probably different to a lot of people's because I never really dreamt of becoming a player.
Yeah.
Because from when I was in the academy, I was only allowed to train with the team and play with the team if I was doing well in school. Mm-hmm. So if I wasn't, then I would never play.
Yeah.
I would never train. I would never do anything like that. So, like, it almost felt like playing was a reward as opposed to an expectation. Mm-hmm. So, as I say, I managed to do well in school, which meant I was able to have a better academy career, which meant I was able to actually have a career. Because if I wasn't doing as well or working as hard, I probably wouldn't be doing what I'm doing right now.
Yeah, of course. And then obviously, as a little kid, were you the type of young kid, to play different sports, or was soccer the only sport that attracted you? And were you always a defender?
No. Listen, this, as you've probably heard before, the story of a player is that not many people start off as a defender. Yeah. You end up there because ultimately, like, the position isn't like it's not the most glamorous thing.
Yeah.
So I was playing for my school. I was playing in defense, but I was like scoring 15, 20 goals a season.
Wow.
But in the academy at City, I was actually playing as a striker. So I was playing as a striker until I was 15, 16, and then I think they just decided they thought maybe I'd just do better at the back or whatever. I was, so to get through all those years playing as a striker, I wasn't exactly struggling, but They just thought that was a better idea, and I can't really complain because I've played like 400 odd games now. But I used to play soccer. I used to run track as well.
Wow.
I used to do all sports really, but the difference in culture between, say, America and back in England, say things like basketball and all that, we don't really play it as like a national thing.
Yeah, not as popular.
You need to be in the right place. So whereas like I drive around here and I see loads of basketball hoops, if you go to England, you're not going to see many because it's not really part of the culture.
Yeah.
So in terms of that, I did the sports which you were doing, whether it was cricket, tried a bit of rugby or whatever, but yeah, ultimately it was always soccer and track and field.
Yeah, and then if I'm not wrong, your 100-meter time was like 11.09.
It was 11.09 at a national final when I was 15 years old. Yeah, and I finished second. And like, to be fair, I feel like I'm still pretty quick now, so it makes me wonder. I must have been really fast back then.
Yeah, of course. And have you ever given thought, if you weren't to be a professional soccer, like what would your profession have been? Have you ever given thought?
So I started playing when I was 17. Mm-hmm. So in terms of actually having a career which provides you with money, I wasn't necessarily ever close to having to search for that. Yeah. So I did my stuff till my education till I was 16. Then I did I don't know how you describe it here, but like it's a college thing from 17 through to 19. I did that while I was playing. And that was in maths, business studies, and information communication technology. So I was drifting towards something maybe related to accountancy or something to do with statistics, numbers, and so on. But whether or not I would have wanted to do that for a career, I'm not sure. Yeah. I'm not sure. But I think it'd be something to do. It'd be something to do with numbers anyway and analytics. Because even to this day, I love all that stuff.
Yeah, of course. And then if you could tell us, something that us, the fans, don't know about Nedum, something apart from the soccer
something
world.
you don't know. That's a good question. Something. It depends. Do you want to know something fun or just something factual?
Anything is good.
So this is a loose one. So my aunt. So I have a relative who made music. Doesn't make music anymore. Yeah. In fact, two relatives, and they had a song which was the number one song in the UK.
Really?
It was. Yeah, I think it was around 2001.
Wow.
So that's at the time that was my claim to fame. So there's that, and I don't know. It's a tough one to say. I might have to get back to you on that one.
Yeah, of course. Wait, what was the song called? So you can search it up.
The song's by DJ Pied Piper, and the song's called "Do You Really Like It." It was the number one in the UK, and I remember thinking, like, that's my uncle, and that's a big moment. Yeah.
Of course. And obviously, coming from different backgrounds, right? Being Nigerian, obviously, and growing up in England, how was being Nigerian? And I'm guessing you consider yourself English as well, right?
Again, that's a good question. Yeah. So when it boils down to it, I'm lucky enough to be able to call two places home. There's one place which, like all my blood is Nigerian. Yeah. My mother, father, I was born there. Like there's no link to anywhere else on the planet. Yeah. That's where I'm from. Yeah. And I'm proud to be from there.
Of course.
But then I was also raised in Manchester, in England. And like, obviously the first few years were very Nigerian, but from that point, I became a part of that culture and what it was to be from that place. And something again which I'm proud of because it's an identity within itself. But I think when it comes down to it, if every time England played Nigeria, I'd always really want Nigeria to win because ultimately, as I say, that's my history, that's my heritage. But in terms of England, like I was lucky enough to play for England 21, which I was obviously very proud of, and so on. But home, if I had to pick a place which would always be called home, it would have to be Nigeria because, as I say, there's not a drop of anything in me that's not from that place.
Yeah, of course. And then have you, I'm guessing you were born in Nigeria, but you chose England at the international level, for the U21s. If you could talk to us about that.
Let me tell you the full story there. Okay?
Yeah, of course. I want to
know. There always is choice, but not necessarily in its simplest form. So, coming through the academy and all that stuff, no one in my team was ever selected for a national team, even though we had one of the most successful academy teams in the country. Yeah. And that's because at the time, I don't know if it still is the case now, but it's a little bit political, where if you play for England under 16, you'll stay in the team all the way through to under 21, basically. Wow. Even if you're not really playing. So there were guys who, I think there was one guy in particular who was in the age group above me in the academy. And one year he played more games for England than he did for his academy team because he was already within the system. Yeah. But loads of my team weren't in that. So I made my debut at 17, and then I got my first call-up, I think, when I was just soon to turn 19, even though I was playing in the first team. And that call-up was for the under-20s, England under-20s, I think it was before possibly a World Cup year or something. Played in the game, scored in the game. And I remember before the game, I was reading through the programme to see what was what, and there was a player in that team who had just made his debut for the reserves or the second team. And here I was. I'd been playing in the first team for 2 years. Yeah. But he'd been in the system since he was 16. Wow. You know, kind so weird, like, no? Yeah, it was really, really weird. Like, it felt like really strange that I'm making my debut. Yeah. But ultimately, like, I'm making my debut. I've just, like, after the game which was played before that international break was against Chelsea at Stamford Bridge. Wow. And I was involved in that. Yeah. And then I got picked up and got taken to the under-20s game. But there was a guy who just made his debut for the second team who was also now in a car going to play in this game. So it felt like there was a bit of the inequality thing. But anyway, with the call-up situation, when you play in England and you're eligible to play for England, you don't receive a letter saying, would you like to come to this camp? Would you like to come to this place? You receive a letter saying, congratulations, you've been called into this camp. You've been called into this situation. So even though you do ultimately have a choice, everything's in motion for you to just go and be somewhere anyway. And like, don't get me wrong, it's you take pride in the fact that you've been selected and so on. But a real choice is one whereby you have both options on the table at the same time. But for me, that never really came. So it was always the easier decision to go with England. Obviously, I was proud to be selected because it showed that you were doing well. Yeah. But I never had that moment where both people came to me at the same time and said, we both want you in this place. Because then, as I say, that's the choice. And then I'd have to say to one over the other, I want to do this instead of that. But that was never the case because it was never an instead of. It was just a case of I was playing for England. Or that's what it was, basically.
But did you? I'm pretty sure you possibly got a call up from Nigeria. Like, I'm pretty sure there was interest from them, or no?
There was one time where that was the case, and it was 2010, I think, maybe 2009, 2010, and it was when they had a German manager called Bertie Vos, and he wanted me to go to the African Cup of Nations, which was a tournament which I don't know if it still does, but it ran from like February through to April or something like that. Yeah. So this is, for anyone who doesn't know, like that's right towards the final section of a Premier League season. Yeah. You're leaving just past the halfway point. So it's a big significant moment. And at the time at Man-City, I wasn't playing. I was a substitute. I was in and out. Might not make the squad, this, that and the other. Yeah. But I really wanted to try and assert myself within that team. So when he called, I said to him, I would love to go, but if I was to leave now, then I'd have nothing to come back to. Yeah, so I was more concerned at that time about that. Like if I was more established and they called, I would have gone. Yeah. But the time never came. So I was very honest with them about that. I didn't say it's because I didn't want to play for the country, because that was never the case. Yeah. But unfortunately, from that point, certain people within the federation and other people from outside started to create a narrative that I just didn't want to play and I'd rather beg to play for England. But honestly, all it was in that moment, I just wasn't as comfortable in terms of going somewhere and leaving what I had behind, because, as I say, I could have come back to nothing.
Yeah, of course. And obviously, when you moved from Nigeria to England, did you ever give a thought like what your life would have been if you would have never moved to England and just stayed in Nigeria?
That's a good question. I think ultimately, like, around those times when I first came over, I was probably too young to think about the whole picture. Yeah, of course. Because then now, say for example, I have a 5-6-year-old child, and I can't think of her thinking about what life would have been if she solely stayed in England. You know, so you sort of realize how young you actually are, or you were back then. Yeah, life definitely would have been different. Like my family back in Nigeria, we were more well off than we were in England. Like when we came to England, it wasn't poverty, but it wasn't too far away from it.
Wow.
And they just, they worked. My mum and dad worked really hard to give us everything that they could.
Yeah.
Even if my dad was working 2 jobs, which would take 20 hours in a day, basically. Wow. My mum was having to work out in a different city to do everything she could as well. She came and working 2 jobs as well. So it was hard. Yeah. It was hard, but I don't know. I can't really complain about life that back then because we were lucky enough as a family to be able to escape that once I started playing. Yeah. So ultimately, life, could have been different, but it's not really something which I'd change now.
Yeah, of course. And obviously playing in the Premier League for many, many years, us the fans, think you guys make good money, cars, women, and all this thing, but it's honestly not like that, because you guys are all obviously human beings. But if you could talk to us, about the toughest moment in your career and why.
There are lots of tough moments in general because a lot of people are related to injury and this, that, and the other. But I could say those. But the one for me personally was in 2009-10 again, when I made my debut in 2004, and I played for every manager up until that point. I might not have played every league game, but I played the majority of league games or whatever. So I was always a big part of a coach's plans. And then Roberto Mancini came in, and then I was out of the plans altogether, like completely out. Wow. And one of the things with him, which I think is a negative against him, even though you could argue he's a good coach because he can get a team to play exactly how he wants them to, but a negative was that you never really received feedback. So I went from being in the team
to out,
to being on the bench and out, to be having someone come up through the reserves, selected through the reserves, to then play ahead of me. And on certain occasions, I would be traveling to games knowing that I'm not even going to make the 18-man roster. I was just the extra guy. But I never knew why that was. And I was like 24, 25 years of age. And it was the first time that happened. And I'm a thinker, so to not know why, to not be able to ask why, but just have to deal with it. Like I had so many sleepless nights. Like we'd play a game at night time, and I'm thinking, maybe I'll play, get to the stadium, I'm not in the team. Like check to see the bench, like I'm just about on the bench, but then game goes on. There's a change for someone who I'd always rotate with, and I'm not coming on, and I'm just sitting there. And all the while, like, no one's saying why this has happened. But the only thing that's changed is time and the coach. But everyone else and everything else around it is exactly the same. So that was probably the hardest time for me because I really, really didn't know why. To this day, I still don't know why specifically. But it's one of those where in the end you accept it, because from there it led to me leaving, which isn't something I ever wanted to do because of the fact that I'm a Manchester boy and that's my team. But you realise I've ended up playing since I left City. As I say, I'm probably 300 games. I left City 300 games ago. So the fact is, to be able to play that many games as a professional is a blessing. So it's a shame that it wasn't where I was. But I've also really enjoyed my time wherever else I've been.
And obviously when you were at City, did you ever give thought of what if I were supposed to leave before Mancini came?
Never, no. It never, in fact, I tell you, there was only one time in my career where I thought maybe I was leaving, and I think it was in my second or third season. And I read a newspaper article which said that a coach was interested in bringing me to his club and he was going to put a bid in. And as a young player, and before, there's more knowledge gained about how the market works and everything like this, you kind of believe what you read. Like it takes a period of time for you to realize that what you read could just be getting correct. Like I could call someone now and just send out a fake story. A lot of it isn't real. But I thought that was real, and I thought, oh wow, what happens if City accept this bid? Do I have to do this? What happens if I have to leave there? And it made me think. But aside from it, never came out, because that's when I realized that coaches as well, if they say they have a target, like the coach at that time who was interested in me had 4 of us lined up at the same time, and he was going to pick which one he wanted. But I didn't know that till afterwards. Because then when he signed someone, I was like, oh, that's my friend. So he knew I was interested in him as well. That's when you sort of gain the knowledge. But aside from that, I never really thought about leaving because I was just happy to be there. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like you appreciate more once you've left and you can look back in a more relaxed manner. But that was home. To be able to stay at home, play for my hometown team, and be successful with them after coming through the academy, like it's everyone's dream, isn't it?
Yeah, of course. And then obviously in quarantine, some MLS teams have come out, to train. But in your case, Nedum, what have you done during this quarantine? Exercises, Netflix, and obviously, I guess you want MLS to come back.
So Netflix is a thing for me, but I'm not really into watching too many TV series, to be honest. Like, I don't. A lot of people say, "Why don't you watch this? Why don't you watch that?" And I'm not really
into it.
I don't know. Nah, like I will do. I might do it. I might do it. But the more people that tell me to do something like watch a TV series, the less chance there is that I'll actually watch it. Because I'd like to be able to make up my own mind. So we've been given lots of fitness work and stuff like that, which we do. I'm lucky because I have 3 kids. So to have the 3 kids and my wife here every day, there's definitely something that you can do. You know, it's not like you're going to be bored for 6 hours. Like you entertaining them is a job in itself. So I've been doing that. The weather's getting good here, so it's nice to just be outside. Like where we are in Utah, the restrictions haven't been as strict as say the most strict places in America. So that's been a positive. Just overall, it's just been staying informed. You know, because there's a lot of stuff going on which is like kind of killing people. You know what I mean? So just making sure that you know exactly what's what, and it's been all right. I had my sister over here for a while. Like when things started to lock down, she was here for 6 weeks before she went back to England. My mother-in-law was here, but overall, like, listen, when you have 3 kids, you don't really need to find ways to keep yourself entertained.
Of course. And obviously, being Nigerian, how many languages do you speak?
So I can speak a little bit. Oh, sorry, I can understand a little bit. I won't say speak. I can understand a little bit of so within Nigeria, like my group of people or tribe, as you could say, they're called Igbos. So I can understand a bit of Igbo. I've never had to speak it because I've never really been asked to by my family or forced to.
Oh, wow.
Maybe some of that's generational, but that's not really my age range. Like same with my cousins and stuff, they understand it. Never really been asked to speak it. If you go back home, you'll probably be asked to, but I've never really been asked to. But then the national language is English. But then from being in school, I speak a little bit of Spanish, speak a little bit of French as well. And then through being, and then speak solo un poquito, señor, solo un poquito. And then through just being in a multicultural and very diverse dressing room, you start to pick up bits of Italian, bits of German, you know, like there's so many different people, and it's nice to be able to say something to all of them in their home tongue. So I've got a little tiny grasp on a lot of languages, let's say.
And especially right now, especially the MLS, you know, because MLS in every team there's so much diversity. Like for example, in your case at Salt Lake, there's Marcelo Silva, Savarino who speak Spanish, you know, so. You speak a little bit of Spanish with them?
I do. I try to. But it's funny because when I was in England, I was with Esteban Granero, who came from Real Madrid at the time before he went to QPR, and I'd always try and speak to him in Spanish to improve my Spanish, but he'd always speak to me in English to improve his English.
Back and forth.
Exactly. So it was the weirdest back and forth, but we tried.
Did you ever try to speak like Italian with Balotelli or Spanish with Kun?
Spanish with Kun, David Silva, people like this, trying to, because at the time I had a tutor teaching me Spanish at that point as well, and the Italian, like when Mancini came, there was an Italian like infiltration, so there was manager, there were coaches, there was a chef, you know, there were 1 or 2 players and stuff, so you'd learn certain things, but unfortunately with Mancini, the only things which you'd ever really learn from him would be swear words, because he was never happy. But, you know, such is life, man.
Of course. What is your favorite type of music and food?
So my favorite type of food, I always think that it's like Thai food or something like that. But then, as soon as I have food from Nigeria,
it's over.
It's over. There's no debate. There's no debate. Like that's one thing which I miss from being back in England and being surrounded by, say, certain people that are from where I was from. Because that's the norm. That's the culture, and like that's what I was raised on. As soon as it touches my tongue, it's over. It's done. And then for music, I like to think that I like a lot of different styles of music. Like if it's produced well, created by people who know what they're doing, I always like it. But I'm definitely a hip hop guy. But a hip hop guy in terms of things which will stand the test of time.
Yeah.
Like some stuff which sounds great today, you might never listen to again in a year's time.
True.
So that's fine. People can be into that. Yeah. But that's the type of thing which sounds great in the club. And to be honest, I don't really have time to go out to clubs anymore. So I like to just listen to things which touch my soul.
Of course. Well, what's the most embarrassing song on your phone, if you have one?
Oh, I have loads. Like I said, if something sounds good to me, I'll just roll with it.
Yeah.
Like I'll happily listen to Ariana Grande, happily listen to Taylor Swift or whatever. Like if it comes on, I'm not gonna skip it. It's like it's
a good song.
It's all right. Yeah, if it's a good song, it's a good song. I don't really care who it is. Yeah. But the thing that's probably been overplayed the most is Baby Shark.
Oh,
because of my kids.
Yeah.
So at any point, I could go from listening to like Rakim or like Raekwon or whatever, and then all of a sudden Baby Shark just pops up, just in a mix. So it kind of takes the edge away a little bit.
Of course. And then obviously going into a game, do you have a playlist going into a game to motivate you, or are you the type of person to not?
I used to up until I was probably 27, I think 28, because that's when I became captain
of QPR.
And I was at QPR, and I was a bigger part. Like I was always a part of the movement in the dressing room.
Yeah.
But I became like a senior player, and at that point, I was making sure that I was speaking to everybody. And I think sometimes if you do listen to the music, you separate yourself from that.
True.
And I know it's good to motivate, but I would rather now have a conversation
with somebody.
There's somebody or everyone than just sit there with music. Like if the music plays through the speaker, great.
Yeah.
But I always feel a bit weird when I just it makes me. Don't get me wrong. I take soccer very seriously.
Yeah.
But when you're like 400-500 games in, like you realize what you need to do for a game and what's not actually that big a deal.
Yeah.
And listening, like one of my old teammates at QPR, he always used to listen to "Lose Yourself" by Eminem because that got him motivated.
Yeah.
But like for me, I just thought that was funny because I could turn up to a game and I could be out like with the MLS and kickoff times. As soon as you get to a game, there's always a game on.
Yeah.
So I might just watch the game and talk to guys about the game, or talk about nothing in particular, and then just go out and play. Well, it is what it is.
Yeah.
But some people, they have their rituals, they have their beliefs, and fair enough to them. But for me, I'm easy. I'd rather talk than listen to music.
Yeah, of course. And obviously, from the toughest forwards in the Premier League that you face, now in the MLS, there's probably a big difference. But could you mention to us the toughest forward you have encountered in terms of, defending, maybe a little faster, a little stronger? I mean, stronger, I don't think so, but who do you think?
Are you talking about the MLS or in general?
In general, like whoever.
That's a good question. Yeah. That is a really good question again, because some strikers are good.
Yeah.
But sometimes they're only as good as the team that they play for.
Yeah.
So, some have like really good movement or really good finishes, or like they're really strong or great in the air. Because like from my time, I've played against people who could be like 6'7", played against people who are probably like 220 pounds, played against people who could be track sprinters.
Yeah.
But the ones which are ultimately the hardest are the ones with the most intelligence. Because say, for example, someone like any striker who's got a history of scoring a lot of goals, they don't necessarily just do it because of a physical attribute. Like, I'm sure it helps. But say someone like a Kun Aguero, or you could talk about Harry Kane, you could talk about even Ibrahimovic or whatever. Yeah. These people who score a lot of goals, they're clever because they always live in your blind spot. As a defender, you're looking at the ball and you're looking at the man, or you need to look at both, but very rarely can you do both at the same time.
Exactly.
So at some point you'll lose either the ball or the man, and the biggest danger really is going to be losing where the ball is, because someone could just shoot and score. So more often than not, your attention will be drawn to that, and some of the best strikers I've ever played against know that exact point, and that's when they make their movements. And some people, like Aguero's the best for it. He literally lives in your blind spot. So a ball could come into the box and you think everything's okay because he was just next to you. But then all of a sudden, as he wheels away with his hand in the air celebrating the goal, you realise that no, he's not there anymore. Yeah, literally. So that's the thing. Like physically, it can be great. It could be great to have speed, great to be great in the air and all that stuff. But the best players ultimately in the world are the ones who are the most intelligent.
Yeah, of course. and obviously playing as a center back. In your opinion, Nedum, who do you think has been the best center back in England history in terms of soccer?
Ooh, I think it depends what you want from your centre back, because the whole style of football in England has changed across the years.
True.
So there's a bigger thing now about, you want to be able to play, you want to be able to do this, but like not just play, like overplay.
Yeah.
You need someone who's going to be starting attacks. But from when I was watching the game in the 90s and maybe early 2000s, it was just about stopping the ball going into the goal. But iconic centre backs, Rio Ferdinand was exceptional, and he was. I ended up playing with him for 1 year at QPR, and he was a lot older. Mm-hmm. But his ability, it's like the intelligence thing again. His ability to read the game meant that he was never flustered within a game. So when it came down to this sport these days, gives you lots of feedback, and one of the biggest feedback numbers is like total distance covered and so on. Mm-hmm. And some of the best centre backs that play the game right now run on the lower end of what is expected from a defender. And the reason they do it, firstly, it could be because their teams are better, but secondly, it's because they're efficient. Mm-hmm. They know where to be at the right time. Yeah. They're very rarely having to run back and do this. Very rarely having to make big tackles and all this, because they can read the game. Yeah. The fewer tackles you make, the easier and the more like ball steals you have, the better you are essentially as a defender. Because if you're on your backside, you're out of control, and you're hoping that you win the ball. Yeah. So Rio Ferdinand was up there. People can talk about Virgil van Dijk now. But then there's like Vincent Kompany as well. And the thing I like about Vincent, he's a good friend of mine, and he was ultimately the guy who showed on the field, like, he'd respect the opponent in the fact that he wouldn't like just try and kill them, but he was the next stage just below that. Like, he didn't care who you were. Yeah. Like, if he needs to kick you for the game, he'll kick you for the game, and he'll feel no type of way about it. Like, we played. This is a good few years ago now. In pre-season at City, we played against Inter Milan in Washington, I think it was, and Samuel Eto'o was up front, I think it was. Mm-hmm. And in the team at the time, we had Vincent, we had Yaya, Kolo Toure. And Vinny was kicking was kicking Samuel Eto'o throughout the game, I believe. Uh-huh. And then at halftime, Yaya and Kolo tried to pull him to the side and say, like, can you not do that? This is Samuel, just a bit of respect or whatever. Yeah. Vinny didn't care. He went back out and he kicked him again. And he literally said to him, every time you moan, I will kick you again. Wow. And he went out and he did exactly that. And the thing is, Samuel Eto'o will be an icon for Vinny. Of course. But when he came down to it,
didn't care.
Nah, couldn't care less. Wow. Could not care less.
Yeah, wow. And obviously, I'm imagining, Nedum, that you've sacrificed a lot in your career, because a lot of players do. But in your case, what sacrifices have you done to be where you are today that people don't know, behind the scenes?
I think one thing about being a professional, if you want to do it the right way, is that ultimately you give up a lot of time and a lot of things which perhaps the real world don't. Say, the amount of birthdays that you miss, the amount of opportunities to, like, real normal social things you can't necessarily do because you're always occupied. Like, if it's your best friend's wedding but it's in September, you're not gonna go. You know what I mean? So you kind of sacrifice you sacrifice the real world by being a professional, because this is what you are, this is what consumes you, and you can never really just go out and be yourself as well, because ultimately you're being judged by everything that you say. Exactly. For the duration of your career, you could have said everything right, but the moment you say one thing wrong, everything's over.
It's blown out of proportion.
Yeah, completely blown out of proportion. Yeah. And like, people, back in England for a spell, people were actively trying to catch you out. Mm-hmm. So you couldn't, you have a Twitter account, then all of a sudden you start seeing newspapers start following you. This newspaper, that newspaper, this online thing, that online thing. Yeah. And they're not doing it for a positive story. They'd rather you said something which was negative, because then that could ultimately lead to the biggest story at the end of you. Yeah. So I suppose the biggest sacrifice is just your ability to become a normal human being and just be almost anonymous within the world. Yeah. Because ultimately everything you say will be criticised, will be judged, and you'll have to face the consequences, where for other people, not necessarily you have to say something negative, but for other people, you're free as a bird to do whatever you want.
Mm-hmm. Of course. And then from what I was reading, you were at Man City since 1996. You know,
Yes.
almost lasted 2 decades within the club, which is
Yes.
crazy. You know, and obviously you were at the academy as a little kid. How was it finally, signing the first professional contract with Manchester City? I'm guessing a sigh of relief, right, from being all those years within the academy.
It was, again, like I say, my story is just a bit different. It wasn't necessarily relief; it was more excitement. So before I signed professionally, I was on the youth team contract, and that's when we were getting £80 a week, basically.
Wow.
That's all. That's what it was. But you were in there 4 or 5 days a week, and you were having to go to college as well, and like that. My thing was that from there, I then got called into the first team. So the very first squad I was in the first team for was when City played Chelsea in 2004, and City beat Chelsea. Chelsea's only loss of the season, I think.
Wow.
And the win bonus was £3,750, and I was making £80 a week at the time.
At a 17-year-old.
As a 17-year-old,
wow.
And like that type of stuff changes.
Everything.
The world. It changes everything.
Yeah.
And then to sign, but I wasn't allowed to access it until I signed a professional contract. And you had to be 18 to do so.
Yeah.
So I waited, I turned 18. All of a sudden I got more money, but it was only, at the time, I think it was maybe like £400-500 a week, maybe.
Yeah.
But you signed a 4-year contract.
Yeah.
So now you took your first step.
Yeah.
And now you've got 4 more years to see how many other steps you can make.
Wow.
And if you make all the right steps, then you sign another new contract, another new contract, another new contract.
Yeah.
So it was a great moment because that was the first time where the earning potential was there to be able to move my family out of the place that we lived at. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
So for me and my family, it was a huge moment. Yeah.
Yeah. And when you started earning, like big money at City, what did you purchase? Possibly a home for your parents. Like, do you remember?
Yeah, that was the first. So 2 things.
Yeah.
So when I was first signed my professional contract and I was playing, I was in a VW Polo, which is like a $7,000 car.
Wow.
Yeah, that's what I was driving around in. Because that's what I could afford at the time.
Yeah.
And I remember I used to get killed by all the other rich guys in the team because they had like $100,000 cars, all this. But I was like just in that one, so that is what it is.
Yeah.
But I was saving because I got the money, and then my family we bought our very first house together.
Wow.
And that was I think when I was like 19 or something.
Wow.
So I had that. And then I got myself a new car. I got myself a $20,000 car.
Yeah, upgraded.
Literally, big time. Those are the biggest things. But overall, for me, like, I think I live a simple life. So some of the flashier things in life, is what it is. I think I've probably spent more money across the years on vacations and traveling the world than I have on specific items.
That's good, though. That's good.
Yeah, that's what I prefer. Yeah. That's literally what I prefer, because some of these other items, they're cool and that, but to say that I've been to every continent but one on the planet is like,
wow,
that's brilliant. I'll take that over having another watch.
What continent haven't you been to?
I've not been to South America yet.
Wow. Have you been to Central America?
I have been to Central America, yes.
What
yes,
countries?
I have. Have I? Hang on. Are you going to call Mexico Central America?
No, Mexico is North
That's
America.
Too far. So you're calling that North. So which parts is Central then?
Guatemala, where I'm from, El Salvador, Honduras, Panama, Nicaragua, Costa Rica.
Not yet, no. But Central America doesn't get classed as its own continent, does it?
People say yes and no.
Okay. See, you tried to catch me out.
But I mean, me personally, I think so. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I've got to go to Central America and South America. Yeah. And to be honest, from the moment I finish my career, whenever that is, I'm gonna be traveling again. I can't wait.
I advise you to go to my country, Guatemala. Beautiful place, honestly.
Yeah, I can believe you. I believe you. I'll definitely do it.
Yeah, for sure. And then obviously, I'm imagining October 27, 2004 is a special day in your heart. That's what, if I'm not wrong, that's where you debut with Manchester City at the age of 17 versus Arsenal. Not your official, because your official was against Norwich.
Yeah.
But if you could talk to us about that, how was it 17 years old against Arsenal? A big game,
It was crazy. Honestly, it was crazy. Like, that whole month or 2 months was wild to me because I was still doing the college stuff.
Yeah.
I was still, like, with in the academy, like, academy setup. And then all of a sudden, you start getting, you'll be on the field and then someone say, oh, the manager wants you on the first team field.
Yeah.
So you go over, you do a few training sessions, and then it's like, well, we've got a game next week, and right. And then he says all these names to come and gather together to get ready for the game. And he'll say your name, and you're like, what? Like, honestly, stunned, stunned, because that's the stadium where I'd go and watch the first team.
Yeah.
That's, you know what I mean? Like, but all of a sudden, I'm that person.
Yeah.
I'm that fan that's now playing for the team in that stadium. So it was absolutely incredible. I don't think it was a sellout the game, but it was like 35,000 maybe, and I played well.
Yeah.
Like,
as a young kid.
It was honestly, looking back now, that moment there is incredible. Yeah. To be able to walk out there for a game, like, and it's not, it's men's football. Yeah. At some point, like, you can be in an academy and be surrounded by people who are your own age, which is a lot of fun. But then all of a sudden you step out and it's like, this is men's football, and I'm here, and I'm a part of this. Yeah. And nobody's looking at you funny because you shouldn't be here. Yeah. Everyone's looking at you because you're supposed to be here. Exactly. And that's like, that's a very big moment, yeah.
And then you were also, in the era of, of M.City not having so much money, and then the era where the owner comes in and pours in millions. If you could talk to us, about being in both different
It's crazy times. So there was a point where at City, they didn't have a lot of money, but they weren't, say, for example, a team that appeared to be in a crisis. Yeah. Although looking back now, there were moments where the team was struggling. But to go from being City, because City, it's a big football club. Mm-hmm. Even if they dropped down 2 divisions, like when they were in the what is essentially League One now, they were still getting 30,000 fans. Wow. They're a big club. Yeah. But it was always this, not a small mentality, but it's not an expected mentality to find success through winning things. Yeah. You'd always take part and you'd want to do well and be stable, but it's never about winning things. And then all of a sudden, you start to hear about these rumors of a takeover. Yeah. And then it arrives, and the next day, Robinho's on the training ground with you. This is the Robinho who I just watched the week before playing for Real Madrid. Yeah. But now he's here, and now everyone's saying, these guys are serious. They want to win things. Yeah. And straight away, they start making changes to the training ground, to the staff, to the way that people just thought about the game. Yeah. And fair play to them. They invested more than just their money. They brought lots of different ideas and things to the club to the point where it's basically unrecognizable from where it was just over 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm. How do you feel, like when you saw Robinho, the Balotellis, the Kun Agüero, the Carlos Tevez, Dzeko, how do you feel, at such a young age,
It's crazy. Like, don't get me wrong, if I was 17, 18 and they were coming, it would have been more wild. But even still, to be mid-20s, I think the positive was that a lot of these guys who were coming in, they were great players or players with great potential at that time. But they were all similar sort of age to me, Yeah. So there was never someone who was coming in who was maybe 4, 5, 6 years older. Obviously that did happen, but those ones you named, like they were my age or younger. Yeah. But to see them coming in was like, it was so exciting because it's a way for you to test yourself. Like I've always maintained the most I've learned about the game has been in training at times with some of the best players that have existed within a league. Yep. So if you can do well from Monday through Friday against Aguero, against Tevez, against Balotelli, against Dzeko, like you can go wherever because those 4 players I named, they all offer things which other strikers will offer around the league. Exactly. But they'll be better at it than a lot of those other strikers around the league. Yeah. So to be able to compete at that high level on a day-to-day basis, you can learn so much, and the more of those people that came, the better I became as a player. Yeah. So ultimately, it was incredible. I was still shocked that this is what the type of player we were getting because, as I say, it was only 10 years previous. Yeah. We were in League One, but it was truly incredible. Yeah,
most definitely. And if you could talk to us, about the fans, the Manchester City fans that expect a lot from the team.
Yeah, they expect a lot. They expect a lot from the team now. Yeah. But if you were a fan from before, maybe 2005 or something, then you always have this thing in the back of your mind that they're going to let you down at some point. Because ultimately, that's what we always did. Yeah. We'd always do well, and then there'll be a disappointment or a disappointing spell. Yeah. But anyone who's jumped on board in the last few years if City lose a game a month, they're distraught.
Yeah.
But there was a time when we might not win a game for 2 months. There's two completely different clubs.
Yeah.
And I think all the ones who were there from before there was money, credit to them for sticking around.
Yeah.
And, they get a lot more joy now, but then they still always have that thing in the back of their mind that failure is gonna come.
Yeah.
If there's a bad result, they'll be like, it's just the way we are. It's just City. It's just who we are. But they're a really good fan base. They're a loyal fan base, and as far as it goes, the majority of people who still enter that stadium aren't necessarily there just because they're winning now. Yeah. They were there because they were there before, and they'll probably be here afterwards as well.
Yeah, of course. And then obviously from the various games that you played for M.City, do you have a favorite best game playing for them?
The most enjoyable one that I played in was when we played United. We beat United at Old Trafford.
Yeah.
2008, 9, I think it was, and we were on a bad run of form. And we in my lifetime, I don't think we beat United at Old Trafford.
Yeah.
But then we were part of the team, and it was to commemorate the Munich disaster.
Yeah.
So it was like a special game, and we had like old style kits and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And we went there, and we were 2-0 up at half time. And one of the guys who scored the Rice for Sale was a friend of mine back then, still a good friend now. And every goal he scored in his career, his team never lost.
Wow.
And I knew that before the game. So when we came in at half time and we're 2-0 up and he scored, I even noticed at Old Trafford where we never got any points.
Yeah.
I was thinking to myself, like, I think we got this,
Yeah.
I think we got this.
Yeah.
And we ended up winning 2-1. It was one of my best games for the club, I think. Like, Ronaldo was playing, Nani was playing, like, the full United team.
Yeah.
And, that was, although City beat them 6-1 or whatever a few years later, that was one of the first times, like, United don't lose at home to City. And I was part of the team that went there as the underdog and beat them. And then kind of set a tone for things which might have been coming up later. Yeah.
How'd you guys celebrate that afterwards? Like what happened? Like, do you remember?
You're just so happy.
Yeah.
It's not a result you expect, so you'd be celebrating a bit in the dressing room. But then there's always that little bit where you don't want to appear like you never win games ever. Because the longer you celebrate, the more it seems like good for you. That's cute. Like it's the same as like if you've lost the game to someone you don't expect to lose to, and you hear them all ranting and raving in the locker room next door, it just sounds pathetic.
Yeah.
So it's so we celebrate with happy, but then also it's the danger of those derbies in Manchester is that even if you have won, but the city is divided in half, so it's not like you can just go wherever you want in Manchester and just overly celebrate because chances are you'll meet the opposition. They're everywhere. So we enjoyed it. We enjoyed it in the dressing room. Enjoyed it on the bus on the way back to the training ground or whatever. And we still talk about it and think about it to this day.
For sure. Who was your best teammate at Man-City? That team that you could talk to every day that they had a great bond with.
I'd probably say the Joe Hart or Micah Richards because I knew Joe from when he first got signed to City. Because we were both signed to one bro at the time, so we had an event, and I remember seeing him for the first time and talking to him about what it's going to be like playing for City, and just giving him info, and he was a nice guy, he's a nice kid, all that stuff. So I've known him for this whole time that he's been in Manchester. Wow. I mean, obviously he's a very different person now to what he was then, but we've still gone through just because at that time he came from a team which was in the 4th division. Yeah. And he came into City hoping to be able to do something and have an impact. But the impact he had, he ended up, he's been like in the Premier League team of the year 3 times. He's won 3 Premier League titles, all this, Ultimately, you are a different person because you came, you achieved, and you're successful. Yeah. But no, I didn't mean a different person in terms of a negative way. I meant more so in terms of his status as a keeper. But we're still close to this day. And it's great to see like what he achieved because I remember the exact point of where he came from, as I say. And then with Mike as well, I've known him from when I think he's 2 years below in the academy. So we'd be playing games on opposite fields on different days and things like this. And again, to see how well he did and to see how well he's doing now as well in retirement, like it's brilliant. Yeah, those would probably be the big 2.
For sure. The toughest forward in the EPL that you faced?
I would have to say At their prime, I'd probably say Thierry Henry.
Oof, yeah.
Yeah, because he was an icon. You know what I mean? Like a real icon. And I played against him at Highbury, and he's the intelligent one, but with all the physical attributes, and he could score. So he had the whole package.
Yeah.
So when you come up against something like that, like he's top. Yeah, it's if he with people like that, if they play well and they want to play well, like they're probably going to score. Doesn't matter who they're playing against.
Yeah, of course. And obviously, if we talked about a little, playing with Tevez and Balotelli and Kun, and then I'm pretty sure at the training ground, I'm not sure if you were there when Balotelli set the fireworks in his house, but is there a crazy story about Balotelli or Tevez that you could tell us, the fans don't know, that just probably the players in the pitch know?
Tevez wasn't like crazy like Mario was. Yeah. Mario was just different. He's just a different human. He sees the world completely different. Like this is Mario where when Messi and Ronaldo were at their absolute prime, he was insulted that someone didn't say he was one of the best players in the world.
Yeah.
Like he took it personally.
Yeah.
You only he said I'm as good as them and I'm this. That's confidence. But people are looking at you sideways because you're not scoring 50 goals a season.
Yeah.
But Tevez, one thing I found about him was that so he made a lot of money and things like this, and he worked hard. Like there was that controversy at City, but that I still maintain to this day it wasn't him. That got painted in a bad light because I thought he was a good person, and to sum up how good a person he was, at the end of the season, 1 year, he was giving stuff to the staff. He bought them all TVs.
Wow.
He literally it's kind of a weird thing to give somebody to have a TV. But the fact is, he could have done nothing. But then instead, he's trying to provide something to someone, and even if they want to sell it or do whatever. Like Carlos was a good guy. Wow. I think he was a good teammate, and he was good to people who ultimately it's very easy to ignore. It's easy to ignore the guy who makes your kit. Easy to ignore the guy who serves you food. But he did that. I think that's the big thing for Carlos. I think he's a really really nice guy.
For sure. How were those type of players? Like how was Balotelli? How was Kun? Like as people,
One thing about City in terms of the recruitment is they recruit talent, but they also recruit personality.
Yeah.
And except for Mario, like he was. Mario isn't the worst person in the world. He's a cool guy.
Yeah.
Like he's different. He's emotional. Like he's not selfish, but he's different to everybody else.
Yeah.
So he's probably the only person I saw across the years who didn't fit directly into the model person that the club were after, and that's because Mancini wanted him himself.
Yeah,
but he's ultimately everyone that's in that building is a good person, and when they walk in, they're happy to see each other.
Yeah.
There's no one who's hungry for more attention than the other person.
Yeah.
It's just a case of we work hard. We're for City at that time. They work hard. These are really elite players, and they all set an example for each other. Like even now, if one of the guys who was around then has a birthday party and he invites all the people. People from now to the young, Julian Lescott's, Joe Hart's, David Silva's, James Milner's, whoever's, they're all coming.
Yeah.
Because that's how tightly knit they are, even though they've not played together for a long time.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing. Like it was a great place to work. Like even though Mancini at the time wasn't the best people person, you still had a team of people who were all happy to be with each other, and they all got through it together, which is ultimately why they found success.
Of course. The jokester and the shyest person in that City locker room.
The jokester was probably either Mario or Alexander Kolarov. The shyest person. See, this is a good question. I'm trying to remember who was even there at the time. Someone for a while, someone like Sergio was pretty quiet, to be honest. Just a silent killer, Like he'd have conversations with certain people, but he's never really after attention.
Yeah,
he'd just be working hard for himself, working hard for the team, and then get involved with little bits of jokes and so on. But he was never really a prankster while I was there. Maybe that's changed now. He speaks more English, but I'd probably say him.
The best and worst fashion.
Across the years, it'd probably be Micah Richards for both.
Best?
So the best and worst. So when he was younger, he was wearing a few things which were a little bit out there.
Yeah.
Like a little bit out there. But then as you got older, he got more and more stylish. So I'd probably say he had the best and worst, because I think he'd look back at some of his fits from the early 2000s, and I don't think he's too proud of them.
Yeah. What does City mean to you? You know.
It's different now. It's different to what it was, because for a while I was a fan and I was on the outside. Like, I used to go and watch the first team train, try and get their autographs and stuff like this. And then you become part of that. And I think for a few years I struggled mentally, because every loss felt harder than it should have been. And that was because ultimately I was a fan as well.
Yeah.
And until you can almost remove that from your thinking, you can't really enjoy your life at the same time.
Yeah.
So, a win, a loss, or whatever, like, it's a shame, but you have to find a way to move on to the next, whether it's good or bad.
Yeah.
But I struggled with that for a long time because I was so invested into it. Mm-hmm. But now, as I say, it's different, and I want them to do well, because I think there's still a lot of really good people that are there.
Yeah.
I think they have the best facilities, the best potential, and I think there's a good nature about the club itself. Mm-hmm. It's doesn't feel overly aggressive. So yeah, I guess I'd say I really want them to do well. Yeah. I do try and still support them, but it's not to the same level as it was from when I was younger.
Yeah.
Like, if they play well, if they don't play well, it's not going to affect my day or my weekend.
Yeah.
But when they play well, I'm happy to watch them over and over and over again.
Yeah. Of course. And then obviously when you're at City, you get loaned to Sunderland, and eventually you get bought by QPR. Over 200 appearances, Eventually you were the captain and icon for QPR. If you could talk to us, about how do you feel, probably different role, you gain more confidence being at QPR. Like, how was that transition from going from Man-City to QPR?
Sorry, I think I need to sneeze. Sorry.
No, you're good.
It was different. It was the City thing was a place where everything was there. The training ground was great.
Yeah.
Stadium was great. The setup there was great. They were going for the title. Yeah. Everything was like forward thinking towards success. Mm-hmm. And then when I went to QPR, it was a very different club. The stadium was smaller. The mentalities were different.
Yeah.
The personalities were different. Just the city itself was very, very different. So it was at the start. It was, I wouldn't say it was hard, but you needed to change a lot of things, from the way that you lived your life to just the expectations going on the field, because you went from being a favourite every single week to being the underdog basically 90% of the time. Yeah. And then for those other 10%, if you didn't win those games where you were slightly favoured, the criticism would be far heavier than if you didn't win a game as City, if you were the favourite. Mm-hmm. So that was difficult, but then over time you get used to it, you understand it. They asked me to be captain, and I was delighted to be captain, and I helped for 3 years as captain, I think it was, with the transition, because the club went from spending a lot of money, at QPR went from spending a lot of money to trying to put a bigger focus on the academy. So you needed to make sure that those people who were coming through the academy learned what was needed to be part of the team, to be part of the club. And after the years I'd been there, I knew what that was. So I'd like to think that I helped them develop that next wave of talent, because that's ultimately the way that the club was going to go. So it was different to make the transition from City to QPR. But then by the time I was leaving QPR, I knew QPR better than the 90% of the people who were already in the team. Yeah. And I think I made a difference, because then in the following year, some of that young talent really stepped to the forefront and have done really well.
Yeah, like the Nigerian, wasn't
it Eze?
Yeah,
good player. Exactly. He was one who, like, he had these ideas about the game and stuff like that, but he would also listen to me telling him, like, it's good to have that idea, but this is what actually matters. Yeah. I think the more games you play, the more you understand what's important and what's not. And I think he's really benefited from that.
Of course. And in 2012, I'm imagining you know the question I'm going to ask. QPR versus Man-City, the last game of the season, if City wins, they become champions, and if you guys lose and then the other team loses, I think you guys get relegated. But if you could talk to us, about the whole game, going into the game, like, how were you feeling? I'm pretty sure you wanted to beat Man-City and Mancini.
Listen, it was, for me personally, the storyline was one where if I told you about it, you'd probably say it wasn't real.
Yeah.
But this was me going back to my old team for the first time, for the manager who's given me the most stress in my career, going back with my current manager, who was the old City manager before Mancini.
Wow.
And like, I knew at that time I'd been at QPR for like 2-3 months.
Yeah.
So I was just about knew people's names on not the team players, but like the people who were traveling and so on.
Yeah.
But I was going back to City where I knew everybody's name.
Yeah.
I could probably name you fans in the stadium. You know, I knew all the players personally, knew all the staff, knew everything.
Yeah.
Like me walking through those doors as an away player was one of the weirdest moments of my career.
I bet. Yeah.
And in the week leading up to it, I was so nervous just because I was still, at that point, I was still a bit of a City fan because of my friends that still played in the team.
Yeah.
And I wanted them to do well, but I never wanted them to do well at my own expense.
Yeah.
So I'll run through scenarios in my head of what happens if this, what happens if that. Yeah. Because I didn't have plans to play in the Championship in England. I only went to QPR. Well, I didn't only go to QPR, but I went to QPR as a bigger deal because we were in the Premier League and we wanted to stay in the Premier League, and that's where I wanted to play because that's what I thought my level was. So I was thinking, what happens if this, what happens if that? And then the game happens. At halftime, we're going down because Bolton were winning and we were losing. So our dressing room was like incredibly tense. But then we take the lead, and then ultimately they come back. And for me, when Aguero scored to make it 3-2, wow, that was the lowest point in my career in that moment because I took the throw-in about 30 seconds earlier down the side, which led to them starting the attack.
Wow.
So I thought, this is my fault for this goal, and now my career, my teammates and my club are going to get relegated because of me.
Yeah.
So I went from the lowest point to then looking up and seeing our fans celebrating, our bench celebrating, because at that point Stoke had beaten Bolton.
Yeah.
So I went from the lowest point to then the highest point because now I know we're safe. And now City have won the league, and everyone in the stadium has now achieved their goal. Everyone. And the relief was unbelievable. Like, as I say, went from the lowest low to the highest high. And to this day, like, that feeling of being in the stadium where everyone within it is bouncing. And, you know, there could have been 10 more minutes to play in that game, and I guarantee you no one would have wanted to touch the ball. Yeah. Like, everything, it was set. It was a great day. Obviously, I didn't like losing the game, but the fact that it meant nothing was, like, looking back, it's incredible. And I'm so happy that I was a part of that. And, you know, at QPR at the time, we stayed up that season.
Yeah. Did you talk to any Man-City players after? And I'm pretty sure you heard Mancini swear, if anything, right?
Oh, everyone heard him swear. All you got to do is look at the video after we score our second goal, and he's on the sideline cursing everybody out.
Wow.
He lost his mind for literally 5-10 minutes. He lost his mind because the team City had lost their rhythm. You know, they were making little mistakes and stuff like this. The crowd were getting a little bit edgy because there's that expectation that bad things are going to happen. Like, it still existed within the stadium then. So yeah, I saw him swearing. It was an interesting time.
Yeah, of course. Who has been the biggest trash talker in your career? You know,
against me or in general?
In general, like whoever you faced.
Craig Bellamy, I would say.
Wow.
So he's got a very, very slick tongue on him, and he gives it to absolutely everyone. I've seen people basically in tears by the stuff that he's saying.
Wow.
He's so spicy with it. And then even just like patronizing stuff, like someone will be thinking they're having a good game against him, and he'll say to them, "Oh, what's your name again? What's your name again?" And someone will actually go out and say the name. Say, "Oh, yeah, you're a good player. Yeah, well, yeah, that's good." But all the while, he's just poking fun at them, saying he doesn't have a clue who they are, so they need to just like calm down. Yeah. But he was relentless with it. If you could have a battle with him, and if you say nothing, it's fine. But the moment you open your mouth and you start it off, it's done. I've seen people nearly crying based on what he said.
Wow.
So I wouldn't want to talk with him like that.
Of course. And obviously, so if Nigeria plays England, Nigeria off tops.
Yep, no questions.
Okay.
No questions at all. Yeah.
That's good. And then, in your opinion, Nedum, what do you think has to stop racism? You know, because a couple of months ago, Mali international player Musa Marega suffered racism. But in your opinion, what do you think has to do to stop it?
there's so many layers to that question,
Yeah.
but there's the bigger picture thing for me is that it has to be a change in just general culture, because football, soccer, or whatever, or just general sports, it can kind of it highlights it, but the norms are always different. Like if I need to be very specific about what I'm saying here. Yeah. So if in culture it's acceptable to say something or do something wild, then everything else around it will remain the same. Mm-hmm. People, like, if someone comes in and throws a banana onto the field, like, someone's done that because they think that's normal and that's acceptable. Yeah. But unfortunately, the reason it's like that is because the majority, not everyone in the majority of whatever situation it is, they don't have true empathy. Yeah. Like, if one person says that you shouldn't say this or you shouldn't do that because it's wrong, if a majority disagrees, someone will say, well, I don't think it's wrong, so it's not fine. Yeah. Like, if I say someone says something racist and say, well, no, that's not racist, well, how's anything ever going to change? Because It is a racist thing. So I'm trying to teach you that what you've said is racist, but they will tell me that no, it's not.
Stubborn.
Or but they can be stubborn because they make up the majority within the argument. Mm-hmm. And whenever you can do that, that's how things go. And ultimately, change only comes when the majority wants to take on board different ideas. Yeah. But a lot of the time they don't need to, because it doesn't affect them. Yeah. Until something affects the majority, either change will come very slowly or no change will come at all. So that's ultimately the problem. It's not a way to fix it, but it's a hope that one day the majority will be affected by it to the point whereby they can finally see a different perspective, and as a consequence, they can change the way that they think about things. But too often, that's not the case.
Of course, I agree, and hopefully it changes soon. Because soccer is a sport. I don't think racism should be involved. At all.
Yeah, for sure. But it's just how, unfortunately, it's just the way some people are, and when we've seen all around the world for years, like, people get very, very passionate about the sport, to the point where it turns them into something which they don't think that they are.
Exactly, that's true.
But from the moment they do it, like, that's ultimately who you are, and you just have to accept it. But yeah.
Exactly. What do you think African teams need to do, to go further in the World Cup? Because we saw Nigeria not do so well. We saw Senegal make it to the next step. But in your opinion, what do you think? Because Africa has so much talent, man.
Yeah, this is a really good question. It's a tough one. And I think if there was like a simple answer, most teams would find a way to do it, because ultimately it's kind of like the same thing that happens in the Champions League and so on. You have talent, but ultimately you can probably book in maybe 8 teams every year that will get to the final stages of the Champions League. Uh-huh. And they have something, whether it's experience or just talent or just know-how or good fortune. But they always, like, if you want to talk about Champions League quarterfinals, you can expect to see a couple of English teams. You'll see a couple of Spanish teams. You see Juventus in there. You see PSG, and you'll see Bayern Munich, like, locked in, like, without question. But then there are other teams who are just that tier below, who maybe could make a run, like, say, Ajax being in the semi-finals last year. Just, do you need good fortune? Do you need understanding? Do you just need things to fall your way? Like, an African team can do well in the World Cup, but they need to understand what it takes to beat some of these teams. But some of these teams, they know, ultimately, it doesn't matter about performance, it matters about the result. Exactly. And the more people that they have within a team who've won things from under 16 level international all the way through to first team level international, they know about tournament football. Like, that is a skill in itself. If you can learn about tournament football and really understand what it takes to just get through it and win, then great. But unfortunately, a lot of people are more concerned about how it looks as opposed to the final outcome.
True, most definitely. And in 2018, you come to the United States. You come to the MLS. How did this transfer come about? Leaving QPR, a new move. A different continent to the United States. Why Salt Lake out of all places?
So I wanted to go and try and play abroad. I'd been thinking about that for years. Yeah. And at the time I was looking into Europe, but I wasn't really seeing anything which was really getting my attention. So I thought, how about I spread that around to not just Europe, but just all around the world. So I was I'd seen Australia, seeing wherever. I was literally looking at everything. Yeah. And then when it came down to the MLS, as I gained an understanding of how the transfers worked over here, there were probably 4 or 5 teams who had international slots available. Yeah. So that immediately limits who can be interested in you in that moment in time.
Yeah.
And for me, timing-wise, I didn't want to... The season had finished in May, and I didn't want to wait till January to see if I could come over. Because there were a lot of like teams saying, well, maybe if you do this or maybe if you do that, perhaps this, perhaps that. But then as time passed, Sole came forward with a concrete offer. Excuse me, which was an offer which meant that I could book myself in here for. Sorry,
it's all good.
So I can book myself in for a couple of years.
Yeah.
Because I had an offer from LAFC as well, but the offer was to play the last 7-8 games of the season.
Wow.
And then they'd see what they could do in the next year.
No, well, you didn't want that.
Well, it's not that I didn't want that. It's just that when you have 3 kids and a wife that want to come with you everywhere,
true,
it's a big thing to take that leap to come over to then almost end up with nothing.
That's true.
And as you get older, you have your aims, your personal aims, and your club aims in terms of winning this, that, and the other. But as far as it goes, you need security.
Yeah.
And Salt Lake would offer me security with the time. And speaking to people who were here, they loved being here, and it was a good team. It's a team which has won the MLS Cup before.
Yeah.
So it's not like it's a joke franchise. And I thought, let me do this. I came down, and after 2-3 days of just checking it out, I was all in.
What has surprised you about the league? I'm guessing maybe flying so much different time zones, but what has surprised you about the league?
The flying in time zones thing, like people told me about that before I came, and in fairness, I like to fly anyway, and I like to see new places, so I was very up for that. But the thing that surprised me the most, which has probably been highlighted in this time as well, is the amount of control that the league have over everything. In terms of the American sports model, it makes sense and it works out.
Yeah.
But nowhere else in the world, really, that I can think of that's a major football league.
Yeah.
Can you have it whereby the league says to all players, you have to stay where you are, or you have to do this, or, everyone has to do this thing at the same time, or everyone has to do that.
Yeah.
Like that's been a big thing for me, because in other places, players have more power. They have more... not too much power, but they have a bigger voice.
Yeah.
And that's not a voice that's, especially within abroad, every club deals with its players differently.
Yeah.
You have your voice in relation to the owners or directors of your football club. So if someone says, here, if we say we're going to take a 50% pay cut, everyone in the league takes 50% pay cut, even though one owner might be as rich as Jeff Bezos and the other one might be as rich as someone who's got 100 million,
Yeah.
Doesn't feel like it has to be the same, but everything has to be done together.
Yeah.
But then if you were in England and your owner, say City, did not let any of their staff leave. Yeah. They're all still there. But then you might be working at a team which is smaller, who has to let all their staff leave. But over here you don't have that option. It's literally everyone does the same thing, or nobody does anything, and that's been. It's been frustrating. That's been frustrating for me, because I'd like to think that at some point the players will earn more money to the point where they can be like the NBA, like the NFL, whereby their voice is a lot louder. Yeah. Because ultimately, if they decide that they're not going to play, it affects a lot of things.
That's true.
But when the majority of the league is on less than, I think, 100,000 a year, or not the majority, a third of the league here is on less than 100,000 a year. Yeah. So whenever a league can threaten a lockout or something like that, inevitably all those people will say, okay, well, how high do you want us to jump? Because we can't afford to not get paid.
That's true.
So yeah, I'd prefer... That's been the biggest thing, just how much leverage and power the league has over the workforce, which isn't something that I like.
Of course. And right now, who has the best and worst fashion out of everybody right now in RSL locker room?
The best... I think Albert Rusnak would probably say, you'd probably want to say he's the best.
Uh-huh. And he was a Mancini as well with you, right?
Yeah, he was at the academy, he was at the academy. So Albert, he's got some fancy items. He tries to, he would technically be called stylish now. Yeah. And the worst is probably Justin Glad. Because he always looks like he's just woken up and just picked up anything in the dark and then left the house. So I'd probably say him, yeah.
Yeah. And then the jokester and the shyest?
The biggest jokester would probably be Luke Mulholland, I'd say. Uh-huh. And the shyest right now, who would it be? Who would the shyest be? I'll probably say Everton Luis, just because he doesn't speak that much English, so he just keeps to himself. Like, if you hear him speak, it's like, oh, is that what his voice sounds like? You know, it's kind of like that.
Yeah, of course. And then if you could also talk to us, you know, of playing against Zlatan, you know, because there was a whole bunch of controversial with this, you know, and obviously you faced him. To be honest, I'm not a really big fan of him just because of how he is and everything. But if you could talk to us, you know, about what happened and what happened after in the locker room as well.
So from being in England and playing the first two levels in England, like you get a lot of very competitive games.
Yeah.
You know, like not just competitive in terms of just the way teams play. Like we're talking physical games. Yeah. Some big guys. Like if you're not competing, then like, you know, you're being questioned.
Yeah.
So I still have that mentality, and he's a big guy, like 6'5", probably one of the. It's just he's like. Objectively, you look at his stats, he's a great player.
Yeah.
Great player.
Yeah.
But the way that sometimes you'll say things in the press and so on, whether it's real or fake, like I'm not with that.
Yeah.
I don't really like it.
Yeah.
So I'm always in a position where I appreciate how great he is and how great career he's had. Because at certain points in his career, I've supported him based on the teams that he's played for.
Yeah.
But then, as I say, from when he was in MLS, I didn't like the way they kept promoting all the negative things which he'd sometimes say.
Exactly.
But, you know, whether that's him, I don't know. That's just what it is. But like as I say, he's a great player.
Yeah.
So we were playing the game, and then he hadn't, just out of nowhere, he had an issue with me, which I addressed with him on the field, because I don't back down from anyone.
Yeah,
like,
that's good.
Because at the end of the day, firstly, it's like football, so nothing's actually going to happen. And second, like, who do you think? Doesn't matter who you are, but who do you believe you are to believe that you're better than anybody else on the same field as you? Because we're all here at the same time.
Yeah.
So I defended myself and started criticizing him. And then he carried on talking, and then the game happened. He scored the goal, which was the winner. And then he's tried to do whatever in my face.
Yeah.
And I think he was saying after the game, like, our altercation at the start of the second half is what made him play better in the game.
Yeah.
Because that made him feel alive, he said, or whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever. Like, I don't care. But he did that. And then he came into the dressing room afterwards asking if I'd calm down. And... firstly, I hadn't calmed down. And secondly, like, I was thinking, why are you even in this space? This is our space. And this was only like, we've been in the locker room like 5 minutes tops.
Wow.
And he came in trying to patronize me and antagonize me.
Yeah.
So again, I just told him essentially, like, you can just go. Because, like, as I say, he's an icon and I appreciate what he's done for the game and his career. But ultimately, like, I don't care who you are. If you're going to disrespect me, I'm not going to stand for it. Mm-hmm. And nobody should stand for it. Like, the comment he made last year, which was about he's a Ferrari in the league full of Fiats or whatever. Some people, like, some of my teammates say, oh, he's funny, isn't he? Blah, blah, blah. I said, that's not funny because he's insulting you. Like, he's saying you're nothing.
Yep.
So for as good as he is as a player, give yourself some credit and don't accept criticism from somebody. Yeah. Like, you're better than he calls you this, but you're all playing in the same league.
Exactly.
So just like respect his record.
Yeah.
But when he comes down to playing against him, don't give him an extra yard because that's ultimately how his legacy is created.
Exactly.
Because the more respect you give him on the field, the more opportunity he creates for himself, and he scores his goals and all that stuff.
Perfect. To finalize the interview, Nedum, if you could talk to us about, you know, what's the dressing room like the moral, like, you know, like, what's it like after a win or a loss? Like, do the players celebrate a victory or do they just celebrate like the big ones? And if they lose, who is that somebody in a team who speaks up to motivate the players to not be discouraged?
I think every game ultimately is treated differently.
Yeah. Because
there's some games where you can play well and you lose, and you can, after the game, you can talk about the positives.
Yeah.
And, you know, you can be disappointed, but you can talk about how, like, when it came down to it, there was this momentum, is progress.
Yeah.
A loss is a bad thing, but if you've been working on something in particular and it worked in that game, then it's a positive step. But then you have some losses where you don't play well at all.
Yeah.
So after that, you need to go in and try and find out why. Mm-hmm. And those are the tough moments where you're looking around and you're talking to people saying, why did this happen today? Yeah. You know, so that's real doom and gloom when you have to be reflective in a bad performance. Uh-huh. But then if you have a good performance and it's an unexpected result based on people's perceptions of you as a team, and you win, then that feeling after a game is as good as it gets. Because you are high-fiving each other, you're hugging each other, and you know that you've had to work very hard to do it, but then secondly, play really well to do it.
Yeah.
obviously things always go your way within sport because you can't always have success without a bit of luck somewhere.
Yeah.
But those dressing room moments are great, especially if it's a progressive one, like if it's in the playoffs, if it's in a cup competition. You know, you appreciate every single one. But the best ones are always the ones where you play well and you win.
Yeah.
And the worst ones are always where you lose and you play badly. But in between that, you can play badly and win.
Yeah.
And it's a weird feeling because you know you've got to work on stuff.
Yeah.
But then also you can have ones whereby you play well and lose. And in that case, you need to make sure that people know it's not all doom and gloom and that, you know, there's going to be good times coming.
Of course. Well, thank you so much, Nedum, you know, for your time. It was honestly an honor, you know, interviewing you from following your whole career. So thank you so much. I wish you the best of luck in this season. The crazy thing is today you guys were supposed to play the Quakes in Ross.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So I wish you the best of luck. Blessings for you and your family, and let's hope the MLS can come back. But like I said, thank you so much, honestly, Nedum. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks for having me, man.
For sure. Thank you for watching my video. If you guys could share it with your family members and friends, that would be much appreciated. To all the people around the world who watch my videos, thank you so much. If you could like and subscribe to my channel, I would love that a lot. Until next time, thank you.